Hello guys, it is me again, it's HorrorFan34, and welcome back to another video. And welcome to the continuation of my reviews for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. So now we are on the third film of the franchise. And of course, you know, in case you're wondering why I'm wearing the same shirt, I'm filming these videos on the same day and also the same night. So sometimes you'll see me during the day or sometimes during the night, but it's the same day I'm recording these videos. But getting on to the third film of the franchise, a film that I think this is probably the one of the series that doesn't get brought up much, of like the original 4 movies before they rebooted it. But it's one of the, out of the first 4 films, this is like the one that doesn't get talked about a whole lot. But I think it's a really underrated sequel, and I think it's a solid entry into the franchise. And of course, that review is going to be on Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre III. Now, this one was released in 1990, directed by Jeff Burr. Now, Jeff Burr is a director. He's done a lot of horror. He's done a couple horror sequels. Pumpkinhead 2, Stepfather 2, this film. Mainly did a lot of horror sequels. But in a way, this is... I know, like, when the production of this was going on, this was supposed to be a film where this was kind of like another reboot of the franchise, and they were going to try to span this into a series. Like, this would be like the first... Because, like, you know, the first 2 films had the same family, and this one is a completely different family than the first 2 films. So the cook's nowhere to be found anymore, and, you know, this is all a different family. So the original idea for this was that it was supposed to be the start of a brand new franchise, like a brand new series. So this was kind of like in a way of them trying to reboot the Chainsaw Massacre series, because this is a different family than the first 2 films. But the thing is, though, when the film came out, it didn't do that well, and those ideas were pretty much scrapped, and then they made Part 4, The Next Generation, and then they rebooted it in 2003. But Leatherface, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 has both the R-rated and unrated versions. I prefer the unrated version. I know this film got messed with a lot by the MPAA because of the gore and things like that, but getting on to the story about the film, it opens with the opening crawl narrations talking about the first film, and it talks about how they captured the cook and he died in the gas chamber and things like that. So that's like the little opening crawl to begin the film. And basically you have these two, you have a couple played by Kate Hodge and William Butler. William Butler, who's also in Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood. He's like in the very beginning. He's like one of the first ones that gets killed in the beginning of the movie. But there are a couple. They're driving from Florida. They're going to Florida, and they're traveling through Texas to get to Florida. One thing leads to another. They end up at this gas station, and they meet a guy named Tex, who is played by at the time an unknown Viggo Mortensen, well before Lord of the Rings and things like that. So yeah, you have a very early role by Viggo Mortensen, who plays Tex. And one thing leads to another. He says, oh, you can take this way to take a shortcut, and ends up being the shortcut where the family lives at, where Leatherface is at, and they get captured and things like that. And that's basically what the movie's about. And on top of that, too, other characters in the film. You have Ken Foree as Benny, who's like a survivalist kind of like guy, and he comes into play a little bit later in the movie. You also have, so you have Kate Hodge, you have William Butler, you have Ken Foree, Tom Hudson, Viggo Mortensen. Like I said, I think I said Viggo Mortensen. Joe Unger, he's the guy with the hook hand. You might see him in a couple films like Escape from New York, among others. The woman who plays, I guess, Mama Sawyer, I guess you would say, the older lady, she was also in Stepfather 2, which Jeff Burr also directed. She was in that. And also there's a little girl who is Leatherface's daughter, and the little girl is actually Jennifer Banco. people don't know who that is. She was also in Friday the 13th Part 7. She was the young Tina. You know, I hate you. I wish you were dead. And then she like does that stare, and then her father falls off the deck, and he falls in the water, and Jason gets him. That's Jennifer Banco, the young Tina. She plays Leatherface's daughter. And in this one, R.A. Mihailoff is Leatherface this time. Instead of Gunnar Hansen and Bill Johnson, now it's a different guy. Now it's R.A. Mihailoff. And I think R.A. Mihailoff does a solid job as a Leatherface. I got to meet R.A. Mihailoff, really cool guy as well. But I think this film was really, really solid. I think the two actors do a great job. I like Kate Hodge and William Butler. Viggo Mortensen, is nice to see Viggo Mortensen in an early role. Like I said, I like R.A. Mihailoff as Leatherface. I think the other people do fine, like Jennifer Banco, Joe Unger. I think it's directed very solidly by Jeff Burr. And I think, easily, I think the character that steals the show in this for me is Ken Foree. Yeah, Ken Foree as Benny. He's a load of fun, especially towards the end. Because, like, in a way, this movie, like, kind of like towards the end, it's kind of like more of an action movie. Where when Benny comes into the picture and he's, like, shooting up the whole house, it kind of turns into, like, an action movie. There's, like, explosions and things like that. And the really weird thing, too, about the ending is that toward the end of the movie where Kate Hodge and Ken Foree are trying to escape from Leatherface, and you see Benny, you know, Ken Foree's character, in the swamp-looking area, and he looks like he gets, like, killed with the chainsaw and things like that. But I think what happened was when they screened this, Ken Foree's character screened very well with audiences. So what they did was the original ending, or the original cut of the movie, which actually, thanks to when I was at Monster Mania, I didn't know this even existed, but thanks to my me browsing around the tables, I found this, which is the work print version of the movie, which basically puts all of the deleted footage put back into the movie that wasn't in the final cut. It's a really interesting watch. It's really cool to have this in my collection. I think you can only get this at Monster Mania, like conventions and things like that, because this was, I think, burned from a DVD. It's like a DVD-R copy, but it's really cool to have the work print version. Now, getting on to like what I was saying about the work print version, the original ending is in this as well, when the original idea with, you know, the character of Benny getting killed and things like that, so he's nowhere to be found in the ending of the work print version. But it's really cool to have the work print, though, because it has all the deleted footage put back in that wasn't in the final cut of the movie. So it's really cool to have this. So, you know, thanks to my, you know, me browsing around the DVD tables at the convention, I didn't even know this thing even existed. There was a work print version of the movie. So I think it's really cool to have this in my collection. But in this version, Benny screamed so well with audiences, they decided to keep his character alive at the end. So what they did was they went back and reshot some stuff. So it's kind of like weird a little bit, because like the way Benny gets supposedly killed is like the same way, like with the chainsaw and things like that, like with his head and things like that. But at like the very end, he shows up, and I think it was kind of like a weird editing thing. But you know, it's still really cool to see, you know, Benny living, because I like the character of Benny. I think Ken Foree was a lot of fun. And on top of that too, in the work print version, there's a lot of gore added back into the film, especially the part where William Butler is upside down, and the little girl, Jennifer Banco, pulls like a lever, and the sledgehammer comes down and hits William Butler, and there's a blood spatter. That was put back into the work print, which I thought was pretty cool. So like I said, it's really cool to have that work print version. But it just bit my lip. It hurt. But I think this series, the film overall, I think it's a really solid entry into the series, because I like the actors. I like Kate Hodge, William Butler, Ken Foree, Viggo Mortensen, Joe Unger, R.A. Mihailoff. I think it has some pretty good gore in the movie. It has some really great lines of dialogue. It's just really cool to see Ken Foree in this kind of role, you know, as Benny. I mean, Benny just steals the show. He's just like a survivalist guy and things like that. And also on top of that too, you have a cameo appearance by Caroline Williams, who was in Part 2, and she plays Stretch, but now she's a news reporter, because I know that, and also an original idea for this was that it was going to be a continuation from Part 2 with Caroline Williams being the lead in Part 3, but that never came about, and so they did this instead. But I think Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 is a solid entry into the series. Solid acting. I like really solid characters. I like the fact that it's kind of more, has both horror elements and action bits as well, so I think that's kind of nice. Really great lines of dialogue. I like the actors. I think it's directed very decently by Jeff Burr. And overall, I think it's a really solid entry into the series. Now, I know that I would like to see like Scream Factory get their hands on this and put a special edition of this, because this does have a couple features. Has a pretty decent documentary on the making of the movie. But I like to see Scream Factory get their hands on this, because I know this is on Blu-ray from the Warner Archive collection. But the second one got a Scream Factory release, and so did The Next Generation. And of course the Ultimate Edition of the original film. I feel like this one deserves a Scream Factory release, and maybe get some interviews with Kate Hodge and Ari Mihailoff, maybe Jennifer Banco, maybe Jeff Burr, things like that. But I really do enjoy the film. I think it's a really solid entry into the series. So that is pretty much it for my review for Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. Thanks a lot for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Alright guys, take care.